So I welcome everyone tonight who is attending this webinar session. It's our last one for this year, and I'm quite excited because it is all about technology and how can we utilize it actually to create a sustainable home. And in this particular solution applies to the water tanks and your water supply, which is quite critical for, I think, Daniel, you mentioned up to 1.3 or 4 million residential properties across Australia. So it is really relevant to a lot of people, in particular in regional areas. But Simona will be jumping into this part as well, because they have built a home here in the outskirts of Melbourne and are using also tank water supply. So here we are with an urban solution, basically. So I want to welcome Trevor Sheppard, who is co-owner of TankMate Australia, and we will be talking in particular about his technology solution to track, monitor, and manage your tank water supply. Anthony Gagetta. I know Anthony for many, many years, and I think Anthony has this brilliant balance between actually being very much like someone who comes from technology and is really into graphs and measuring things. But he's also having a brilliant, beautiful property near Taree on the New South Wales coast, an old butter factory with off-grid water supply. And then we have Tatiana Samuel. Tatiana works actually as a waste manager for the Whitsunday Council and is pretty much owner builder and has put a lot of effort in building her little piece of beautiful home in the Whitsundays with off-grid water supply. Can you hear us, Tatiana?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, awesome. All right.
I can build a house, but I can't manage this Zoom meeting.
We will get there. Don't worry. And
Okay.
then Simona Schenker, who is a vital supporter of Evitat. She runs Green Eco Design, a passive house practice. She's also a passive house expert, designer, architect, and on a mission really to make energy efficient and sustainable homes a staple in the Australian landscape. Myself, I'm co-founder and CEO of Evitat, and we are empowering renovators to make better, healthier, and low-carbon sustainable choices around renovations, home improvements, and turning all of these decisions into long-term value with the Evitat logbook. So I will be handing over to Simona, and I think we will let then Trevor make a start. Simona, maybe you start.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's great to be here again and to have such a full house today. And yeah, really looking forward to Trevor that you can tell us all about your system. But I'm almost even more excited to have Anthony, Tatiana here, and also Sonia, you talk about your point of view, how you're actually using the product and why they're good for. Because I just had a discussion with someone else about it. If you just look at someone's website, every company will say our product is phenomenal, you need us, and what we're doing is great. But it's therefore I think it's really important just to have someone talking about it, that's actually used it and can tell you why should you use it and why is it any good. So yeah, therefore very excited to have you here. So yeah, Trevor, if you could please give us a bit of what's your background story? How did you get into this kind of work, and how did it all come together, and how did you end up with TankMate?
Thank you. My background started off as an industrial engineer and then got into IT. And in fact, TankMate is not even my idea, it's my brother's. But he lives in Auckland and has no mains water. And I kind of thought, that sounds very strange. How are you in a first world, hugely populated city and no mains water? But that's it. He's got sewage, but no mains, and they live off a poly tank. And every time they run out, they've got to get the tanker to come out and fill it. And he had one of those mechanical level things that he used to have to walk out in the rain and check what the level is every day or every week, and got tired of doing that and thought, hold on. And he's a mechanical engineer and thought, hold on, is there a better way that I can do this? And that was in 2018. And that's really where TankMate was born. He really was just playing with electronics and various bits and pieces. My background is more business. And I said to him, I think it's a fantastic idea. I think you actually need to make this more commercial. And so it started, and we would have conversations every second month or so, and then it got every month and every 2 weeks. It started with a pressure sensor, which most of our competitors' products still have, which sits in the bottom of the water and can tell by the weight, if you like, or mass of the water, how much water is in a tank. And then he came across radar, and it doesn't touch the water. It doesn't need to be calibrated. It can be in a fully sealed, environmentally proof enclosure. And I said to him, fantastic, let's do that. Now, he was launching in New Zealand, and it's been going in New Zealand for the last 5.5 years. But we made a decision that when the radar product was born and stable after a couple of prototypes, we would launch in Australia. And we did that about 18 months ago. And the uptake has been nothing short of phenomenal. It doesn't require calibration for a start. There are certain minor things like situational, a size of a tank, the thickness of the wall. Radar, as we know, can reflect off any surface, particularly metal, like in the situation of my car with cops on the side of the road. But any reflective surface will give a rebound of the radio waves, and we can tell the height of the water just by putting a sensor on the top of the tank. So there's no calibration up front. It's a completely sealed unit, so waterproof, dustproof. And that's how it was born. And so from that, it was like, okay, how do we pass that information on to the customer? Well, we need an app. Smartphones are everywhere now. So Apple and Android were born, and away we went. And we've had feedback from customers all the way along, including from Anthony. And we continually making changes to the app and to the dashboard and to the features and whatever that we have to provide customers what they want. And really what it is we want to provide affordable solutions for customers so they can know what's happening in their tank anywhere in the world as long as they have connectivity. There's no direct connection between the person's phone and the tank. It goes via the internet. So you could have a tank in Australia and be sitting in a hotel in Europe, and you can know what's happening in your tank. More than that, you can get alerts. So you can set high and low level alerts, and you can also set what we call abnormal usage or leak detection. And for me, that's probably the most critical. You could specify, say, 1,000 liters over a period of an hour, and it will take readings every hour. And if between any 2 consecutive readings you've used more than 1,000 liters, it'll give you an alert on your phone. You might be using it, and that's fine. But if it's 10 o'clock at night and you're watching TV, then perhaps somebody's left the tap on, or there's a leak or something like that. So I don't believe we're as efficient with water in Australia as we should be. We're so focused on electricity and gas and everything else. But water's by far our most important and critical resource in such a hot and dry climate that's where we need to be focusing on. And TankMate forms part of that solution. You can monitor multiple tanks simultaneously on the app. You can also share the app with multiple people. So if you're away, family members, friends, neighbors, anyone you really want to burden with monitoring your tank while you're away, you can. There's no additional cost to do that. And everyone will get the same alerts that you do. We're by no means a finished product in the sense of we've thought of everything. We are finished in the sense of we provide a really good product and service to customers, but things like an API, for example, and that's something I've been speaking to Anthony about. He does dashboards at home, and how can he bring the raw data from those sensors in into a dashboard that shows him a summary of all of his smart sensors within the home. Another thing called If.003, which stands for if this, then that. It sounds really heavy, but it's actually pretty standard. It's an industry standard gateway that smart devices can set up a gateway for. And I can potentially see not too far down the line where a TankMate sensor picks up a low level on the water and turns on a pump to fill up the tank. It then hits the high level and turns the pump back off. And this is done with an If.003 gateway and various other technologies. And our hardware already covers that off. So there's no need to upgrade the hardware. It's around software configuration and these kind of things. We have a Wi-Fi and a cellular version. The Wi-Fi one would fit on the back of a house, back of a shed, anywhere where there's Wi-Fi connectivity. Bear in mind that as long as your internet is good, then you can know what's happening in your tank. I will preface that. And the alternative is a cellular. Now, we chose not to do satellite because we can transmit on demand with cellular, where satellite, you can get coverage everywhere. However, you can't transmit at all times. Currently in Australia, it's between every 4 and 6 hours. And the window is only about 6 minutes a time per satellite. Now, that will increase over the next few years. But we chose to go cellular because we want to be able to let customers know at the time of an alert, a leak, a low level. People don't need to hear 6 hours later. They may have lost all their water by then. There's other technologies like 5G over satellite and things, which we're looking at, where we could use our cellular products, no change in the hardware, but go via low orbit satellite when we don't have coverage out afar. So lots of interesting things coming, but in summary, it's about providing information for people remotely about knowing what's happening on their tanks, whether that be water, liquid fertilizer. We have a customer in New Zealand doing molasses. We have people doing septic tanks. It's I wouldn't say limitless, but certainly far greater than water, but water is our primary resource, and that's how we started.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And like Sonia had mentioned before, there's so many people in Australia that really rely on their tanks. I think you said something like 1.3 million people in Australia, with El Nino on the cards, and potentially being the hottest summer on record. What do you think, or why do you think is this topic so important, and how should we think about managing our water resources? You said water is quite precious.
I think if you ask somebody how much water they use, they'd have to go and look at their water bill to tell you. That's a real problem. People are very conscious about their electronic goods and whether it's in standby or off or low power or whatever it is. They're conscious about their phones because they're on it all their time and how long the batteries last, but nobody's actually watching their water consumption. No. So in addition to monitoring tanks, we also provide information around historical usage. So people can start trending. So they can start seeing, okay, I'm using 500 liters a day. I'm using 2,000 liters a day. And it doesn't necessarily need to be your own home. It could be a holiday home, an investment property, a second home. And being remote allows you to manage that information, bring that in, provide averages, provide forecasting. You can see that in hotter weather, using more. I mean, my brother, for example, limits his children to 3-minute showers so that he doesn't have to fill the tank that often. Now, I don't know many people are doing that, but he certainly knows how much water they're using at the time. So I think, and this really hot summer that's predicted to come is really making people think long and hard about what they're doing with their water and how long it's going to last, and being proactive. For example, not the Sunday double time and overtime charge for a tanker to come out. They could be down to 30% and planning these things more efficiently.
Yeah. And just saying a little bit of a different example. So my partner's family, they're from Sicily, and water is really scarce there. And so therefore the water is often only turned on once a week or twice a week. So everyone has those huge water tanks on their roofs, what they used in the entire week, so that they typically don't have the water to shower every day. They have to wash each other. And I just think, they would probably need some sensors like this as well, and you don't have to go on top of the roof. So, there's just an extended market for you to consider.
Well, interesting enough, so the cellular we don't have. So currently we have Telstra SIM card for Australia and Vodafone and Spark for New Zealand. but we're looking at global SIMs and things like that. So currently the cellular one isn't ready to go to the world. However, as I speak now, we probably have about 50 or 60 Wi-Fi units around the world, including countries like Mauritius, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Denmark, and Greece. Somebody had a holiday home in Greece with a tank under the deck, ordered the Wi-Fi, connects to the Wi-Fi and works, and they know from Australia exactly what's happening.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, on that story, I think I will come later to our case and why we actually recently bought one and want to install it. But I think that's exactly where I see a huge opportunity, in particular for those properties which are more managed remotely. Airbnb, think of Airbnb or other holiday like solutions, for example. This is exactly in our experience. We had, for example, guests who have boats and would then every evening host them off. And I went up north to get back to the property and realized, oh, hang on, half the tank is empty. And it was so unusual. And I was really thinking, I need either to make this really clear in the specs and in the information. And then I put that long information, that we are all ecologically conscious and we are off grid with water supply and everything. But monitoring it is absolutely the next level and really keeping an eye rather onto that. Than just being put in front of the results and actually not having enough water in the end. So yes, I think it's a really critical part. And looking at climate risk data, all the projections actually for Australia, I think we need to start thinking around water supply and being far more conscious around this, how we use water, because as Trevor was saying, water is very precious. And in the first place, good tank water can supply really drinking water. And then from there, you can use it for other things as well. But it's a really critical part of your general management of your home. So yeah, I think it's really great. Yeah.
Definitely. So maybe Andrew and Tatiana, if we can go a little bit over to you, if you can give us a bit of an overview, how did you find TankMate and, the product and everything and how you're using it.
Okay, so that looks like my picture. So I'll start first. So we've got a large property up here on the mid-north coast of New South Wales. It's an old butter factory with a couple of houses. We've got an interesting mix of tanks. We've got the old concrete tanks that originally came with the factory, which can be up to like 6 inches thick or so. And then a couple of poly tanks as well, which are a bit more modern. So the situation that we have here is it's primarily a holiday house, or that's how it started. And we get peaks of people coming to visit. So over the Christmas period, we'll have a lot of people here, whereas other times of the year, we won't have as many. And there was always an argument with me because being a middle-aged male, I want to have a nice green lawn. So you either take up golf or you start doing a lawn. I chose the lawn. And everyone told me that I can't use the water in the tanks because we'll run out of water. And we never actually knew how much water we had. So we were getting trucks of water in when we thought the tank was going down without actually knowing what level it is. So as Trevor could tell you, we've got quite a large volume of water here. We've got a large roof area. And the best thing for us has just been the peace of mind of actually knowing how much water we have. And not wasting money on getting water trucked in when we don't need it. So certainly over the summer period when there's a lot of people here, it's important that we know what the usage is and where it's going. The tanks are also quite old as well, so some of them have got leaks. So it's depressing watching in the app after a big rainstorm, the tank fills to the top and then you watch it drain out slowly over the next 3 days. So it's a good thing to learn about the maintenance. But the devices have been great for us. So we've got 4 Wi-Fi ones. They are spread out fairly far from the access points, and if you look in the app, the Wi-Fi signals often only have one bar there. You'll see there with the citrus tank and the front tank, and also the back one. But we are getting good measurements even with that weak Wi-Fi signal. So certainly for us, Wi-Fi is preferable. I've got a robot lawnmower that's on cellular, and half the time it just can't connect. And so obviously cellular signal in regional areas is dreadful, and the Wi-Fi's worked out really well for us. So yeah, so our use case is really just actually being able to know how much water we have and what's in each tank, which has been important.
So, and can I just ask, because I know you love your lawn, and in terms of the water supply in general, and what do you think, like you have the 5 really big tanks with more than 180,000 liter water, which is more than sufficient, you would think. But you mentioned also leaks, and like some of the tanks are older. So let's say before you installed the TankMate, would you run at any point out of water, or was there really, let's say, half of it spent on the garden, the lawn, or something? And did it change now that you are monitoring your water levels? Did it change your behavior?
Yeah, absolutely. So before we had the TankMate, we'd have to climb up a ladder on top of these cement tanks, lift up cement lids, put a stick down to get the water level. And so we had to do that to 4 or 5 tanks, which was a lot of work to figure out how much water we had. So this obviously made that situation a lot easier. As far as how we use the water, we're now a lot more confident in knowing how much water we have, and so the garden's looking a lot better, knowing that we've got water to use on that. And obviously we've got a huge amount of roof area here, and so for us it's really just about having that knowledge. So it's not like we've got cattle or we've got other things that we have to look out for. It's purely just for us and just for recreation, the property here. And it's just great to have that knowledge.
Yeah, just
you say you water your lawn more often then, because you're more confident with the water.
Oh, hell yes. And no one can yell. And if anyone yells at me, I can just tell them, look at the graph. And so, I mean, there's some stuff that we're after right now. The graphs in the app sort of only give like a 12-month usage. And so working with Trevor is sort of trying to get some year-on-year trends to see how it's going with the stats. And then, of course, the biggest problem with these devices with the Internet of Things is you need a separate app for every single thing. So you need an app for the lights, an app for the mower, an app for the tanks. But there's a lot of standards coming into play. And so I'm hoping that as time goes on, we'll be able to use some measurements out of TankMate to determine when we can turn on the garden irrigation and use it and set some rules. So hopefully, I think that's coming over the next few years. All these devices will start playing with each other a bit nicer, and we can sort of have some automations. What was that acronym you had before, Trevor?
IFTTT. So you raise a good point. What people should be trying to avoid is investing in hardware that needs to be replaced if they want to integrate. And we are all for integration. So the hardware that we have currently really just needs software backends to facilitate that. So developing an IFTTT gateway is happening on our side. I don't have timeframes. My guess is probably 6 months. Closer than that is an API, as you well know, Anthony. So being able to pull the raw data straight from our database. And so all the app does is pull the data from the database and show it in a nice, friendly way to you on your phone. You can get the same on the web in a wider screen if you prefer, and you can export to Excel currently. but the API means that those with even an inkling of kind of software or IT background can pull the raw data and create their own trends over months, years of data to analyze and predict, and there'll be also triggers that will cause other devices to switch on and switch off and things like that. So then that integration is key, and we're very, very focused on that. In fact, the new generation of cellular, which we are manufacturing right here in Australia now, actually, we were manufacturing in New Zealand, and from this first production run, we're manufacturing in Perth. So we're keeping it local, but the latest cellular model will have GPS included. So it didn't currently for the last stock out of New Zealand, but having GPS means somebody with cellular knows exactly where they are, and particularly if they're moving devices on the back of a truck, something like that. Now suddenly people can look on a map and know where things are located as well. And so, as you say, Anthony, it's just about information and being able to use that in whatever form you choose to be better informed.
Yeah, well, I certainly hope we don't see our tanks floating away down the river and have to track them with GPS. So I'll finish on two things. One thing, the build quality. The devices are really well made, and they're a real quality product. And then secondly, the support that I've received from Trevor and the guys has been fantastic. And there's no competing product that I could find. I searched for a long time trying to find a device, and as Trevor said before, everything else was mechanical, whether that's something that floats on the top of the water or something that measures the pressure at the bottom of the tank. And this was the only one at the time last year when I was searching that had the radar set up. So very happy with it.
Yeah, I agree. Like everything I saw so far is absolutely well made and of highest quality. And on that note, even in terms of the data, like we are also going to look into integrating the data down the track to some degree into the logbook, so that it becomes a comprehensive point of understanding, you know, for example, the overall consumption, the overall availability of the water totals, and how it was used so far. So yeah, on this note, let's maybe move to Tatiana. While Tatiana hasn't installed yet, I think there's also a really interesting story behind the work she's doing. And I think, Trevor, you can probably also then tap a little bit into the, for example, in her case, you know, the 4 water tanks and what it actually offers, and in particular when you consider actually installing and measuring the water levels for all 4 of them in one go. Yeah. So Tatiana, I'll let you maybe introduce yourself a little bit and tell your story a little bit, what you have done over the past couple of years. And owner builder is quite impressive. So yeah, and explain a little bit how much water tanks you have and so on.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tatiana. I'm living in Hideaway Bay, which is a remote area in Whitsunday area. And 10 years ago, I decided that I'm going to buy a lot of land. I didn't even know what I bought until I actually had to cut all the trees so I can see what I bought. And then I discovered that I bought a hill. And after spending all the money I had on infrastructure, like I poured a lot of concrete and I built a lot of retaining walls, I managed to build a very small house, like a 1-bedroom house. I could have built a mansion on a flat land, but hey, the view is fantastic. So I end up with a 1-bedroom house. So even with 1-bedroom house, you still need water. And I'm living in here with my mom. My mom, she moved here living with me a year ago. And so it's the 3 of us, myself, mom, and my dog, which he has every day a shower because he's going with mom at the beach. Therefore, he spends more water than I do. So it's kind of like 3 people in here in this house. So I've got 6 tanks, one of 47,000 liters. The 4 you see in the photo, which they're like 10,250, which they're all on a concrete block, and they're all next to each other, connected. And another 3,000 liters close to my house. So it's a very crazy setup in here. I have to, the roof of my house goes into the 3,000 liters, and I pump the water from there in those 4 ones you see in the photographs. Then I got another one, 47,000 liters, which is up on the hill and gets the roof of my mom's granny flat. But anyway, all those tanks somehow they got pipes and they connect to each other, so I can, and pumps on every area, so I can move water from one to another. So I got a total of around 100,000 liters on those tanks. Learned my lesson that I have to keep the tanks closed, even if you have them all connected to each other. You have to keep them close, because if one of the connection pipes were gonna just move, then surprise, you're gonna lose all your water. So that don't happen to me. One of the kangaroos jumped overnight on one of my pipes in here, and then I wake up in the morning, I went in the shower to have a shower, turned the shower on, and there was nothing coming out of the shower. Surprise. So if I would have had this device installed, I would have got a notification, and like everybody's like sleeping with the phone attached to their hand, I would have probably hear it, and I would have gone and checked it out, and I could have avoid losing 40,000 liters of water in one go. So I'm looking forward to have the device installed on the tanks. We actually tried to install it my internet connection, because I got that many retaining walls. It's kind of a little bit weird. The wall is reflecting the internet connection, and I had to buy a mesh so I can have internet connection, a mesh device. They're like 3 small boxes which they take the signal from the my NBN and propagating through this mesh. So I still have to figure out my internet connection, if it's compatible with the device, or what do I have to do so I can make it compatible. So the device is very easy to install. You just, get a hole in a tank and install 4 screws, and that's about it. So you have to be more techie than, a builder to install this device. You have to know more IT than, pretty much install the device. So we're using water in here for gardens, for consumption in both places. Washing my dog, that's the biggest one. Yeah. And you really need to know how much water you have, because to cart water in Hideaway Bay, it's costing around $300 for a truckload of 12,000 liters. So 12,000 liters, even if you have 4-minute showers, you should probably end up on having once a week a shower, if you pay that much money for water.
Yeah, 12,000 liters is basically just a little bit more than 1 tank of one of these 4 you see here.
Yeah, so it's gonna take you probably, let's say, like, if you are very, very careful, the gardens are gonna die, the dog will gonna stink. You're gonna probably stink too a little bit. Probably gonna take you a month if you just cut everybody and give them a cup of water a day and tell them that's it. You get another one tomorrow.
Yeah, and maybe not to forget to mention the like when you order water, it comes Tatiana, is it coming from the dam? I'm not 100%
No,
sure.
it's coming from Proserpine. They got water stand pipes, and you have to pay the water when you got it from the website. So a stand pipe. So the council offers different locations in Whitsunday where you can just, if you have a truck, you go and load the truck with like water which is coming from the water treatment plant.
Yeah, okay.
So there are 4 water treatment plants with the stand pipes, and you can go and load the truck. So it's like not from the dam, so you don't have to get sick from that water. So it's treated water. It's drinkable water.
Yeah, it's drinkable. However, usually the normal water supply you collect through rainwater in your tanks is much nicer. And many people, when they order, for example, in particular when they use it for drinking purpose, they do complain about the taste and so on. So having your own water supply and actually secure water supply through tank water is quite critical in that area. I would say.
Yes, it is. Yes, especially
Yeah.
that in here in Hideaway Bay, it's not raining that often. So all the other localities around, they're getting a lot of water. But here it's kind of like, we never get the water. So it's pouring somewhere else a kilometer away. But in Hideaway, it's a bright, sunny day. So so it's for some reason we're not as lucky. And also you don't have bores, because the bores, they have the sea or the ocean water, so they're salty, so those ones you can't use either. So so the water here is like very, very important. It's like gold here. You have water, you're rich. You don't have water, you have a problem.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you. I think this puts also another perspective really in regional and even rural areas where you really depend on your water. And like Tatjana said, things can happen in her case overnight, and you don't even notice, and easily a whole huge tank and your entire water supply is gone. So having actually notifications popping up and alerts popping up, it's a great way to be more assured that your water supply is safe and you're not risking anything. And
Sonia, I can just say on that, when you've got multiple connected tanks, if they are balanced, i.e. if they are level mounted, so same slab level, bottom connected, then you've got gravity leveling. You can get away with one TankMate sensor on one of the tanks, and in the app you can actually choose a quantity of tanks that you have of that size. So it'll measure the level on one, but it will report in usage on the total volume, because it'll extrapolate out over the number of tanks that you have. So you can actually get a reasonably accurate, be a few liters here and there because of the pipes, a reasonably accurate usage history by just measuring one of those tanks. If they're in isolation, so if they're together but you've isolated them for security, the same reason the kangaroo knocked the pipe and you don't want to lose all your water, then you will need to monitor separate tanks. But if they are bottom connected and gravity leveling, then you can get away with just the one sensor and modify the quantity in the app.
Yeah, exactly. That's really a great way to start with. I find even the idea that I can actually monitor my water levels if they all sit on the same level and are pretty much the same size with one device, quite like really great. Yeah, so it's a great way to get started. And then to see, do you want actually to go even into more safety nets, like, for example, in Tatjana's case, to really make sure that nothing, disconnects some of these pipes or something. So, but however, you would get a very early alert. And this is exactly where the device plays actually a critical like I would say, like it plays into that moment when things go wrong, and really avoid losing the entire water supply. And I think that's a great way to really look into water management and water supply, and down the track even changing and optimizing your behavior with water, which we all need to do, because we have been spoiled over the last few years with a fair bit of rain as well, even in dry areas. If we are thinking, even the Northern Territory had unusual rainfalls, and that is pretty much up to change over the next month. And it's really, everything is pointing towards a very dry period. And I've been through dry periods, in particular in that area. The whole area changes. At some point, gardening is pretty pointless. Like, you won't achieve the lush garden anymore, no matter what. and or otherwise you are basically losing all your water supply. So having an overview and managing that wisely is really, really critical. So yeah, that's really great.
And can I just add as well? So a pretty recent feature is email alerts that we've added.
Oh, okay.
So in the app, you can set up high and low level alerts and also leak detection. And that comes through, it's not a text message, it's an alert through the app itself. So you need to be logged in. The app won't log you out. And you can have multiple people logged in the app at the same time. But in addition, if you go through the web portal, use the same details that you log in on the app, you can see all your sensor information and data and historical information. But you can set up email alerts, and we have a few customers that have now set up, put in their water carrier's email on that for a low level alert. So it could get down to 30%, and there's an automatic email that goes to the water carrier with the details of the tank. That might then cause a call to say, hey, you're looking low. Do you know about it? Do you want us to come out and fill it up on the next time we're out there? That kind of thing. So that kind of proactive thing. So that's pretty new in the last month or two. And we're constantly improving, but it's an alternative for those that you don't want to give access to all your information and tanks and everything like that. But you may have only a choice of one carrier in the area or your preferred carrier that you want to integrate. It's not mandatory, it's optional, and it's not one or the other. You can do both if you want, have the app and the emails. You can email yourself if you prefer that rather than getting the notifications on the app, but just something else as a flexible option for people to think about.
That's great. It's really streamlining. Simona, like in your case with the tank water and the connection to mains, that might be something as well of interest, even if it doesn't necessarily need to go to the water supplier or something. Yeah.
But with us, it's even for the ones that don't know my story. So I mean, I think Sonia had mentioned we're in suburbia, but I have quite a strong allergy to chlorine. So even if the water is filtered from the mains water, I still react to it. So therefore, we have rainwater connected to a house for drinking and for washing and for pretty much everything. But given to the constraints on site, we only have, I think, was it about 6,000 or 7,000 liters? It's not much. Luckily, it rains a bit more than here than in other areas. But yeah, so far we don't know yet when the tank is empty and when it swaps over to to mains water. But I think for me it will be really good if I know we're about to run out of rainwater. I probably would fill up a few bottles with water because I know I can drink it better, and then maybe just avoid showering a bit. So yes, sounds really interesting as well.
Yeah. Well, here is our example. So we have our home or house in Hideaway Bay. We are letting it out or renting it out for Airbnb. And like I've already mentioned, I'm quite excited actually to install TankMate because we had a couple of these typical stories, like I'm very like when you read through the information on Airbnb, I'm explaining everything. I'm going through the off-grid water supply and so on. But it's probably a little bit too much for some people. Then they might not read it, come with boats, hose off the boats. And it left us already twice or three times with unusual water levels. And not being always up there puts us really a little bit on the spot. Like some follow guests, for example, didn't have water because we traditionally also make sure that one water tank is actually turned off. And we usually have fluctuation in that one main supply water tank. But if someone comes and uses so much that it really consumes up to maybe 2 or 3 of these rings you see in the photo, that's a huge amount of water. And having something to monitor that, that can put me basically into the position, to nudge actually guests and tell them, to be a little bit more water wise and so on. And I think it's also something in particular when we are looking at for example, the holiday rental properties and managing that more sustainably is something you want guests to buy into as well. Like we have a lot of guests who are really interested in how do we manage these things. And I had a couple of conversations around this, and it's sometimes might actually even open doors to further conversations. You know, what solutions have you chosen, and how do you do this, and so on. So it's a really good start for conversations. And like Trevor already said, I think we need to be more conscious around the water usage, and in particular managing it better during dry periods. We often enough forget very quickly when we are in the middle of a nice, you know, like more rain period of time. And then it becomes this thing that we expect it to be like that all the time. And it's not. Like the Whitsundays, in particular Hideaway Bay, has gone through periods of years of droughts, and it changes completely the landscape and puts a lot of families under also financial, like additional stress, because ordering constantly additional water is costly, and it's really not the greatest also solution, because usually the rainwater is much nicer than the board treated water. So yeah, on our side, we have 2 larger tanks, a total of 57,000 liters. So it's not a massive amount, and we need to manage it a little bit more wisely. Trevor, I think we are going to test if one device can read basically both tank levels. And if it works, great. Other than that, we will probably then install a second one on the second. But I think they are pretty much level, the tanks, and sit fairly close next to each other. But we will see how that goes, and then make the decision basically during the install. But I'm really looking forward to have these graphs and to be able actually really to track and monitor that. And also informing actually guests if some of them might use unusual a lot of water. Yeah. So on that note,
I've got a question on that, Sonia, just for Trevor. So you and I, we have the app and we can see the data. Obviously, one of the main reasons I want to get access to the API is to try and make something so that everyone can know how the tanks are and how they're performing. Sonia, you would have seen it here at the Butter Factory on one of the tanks before I installed TankMate. We had an angel that would go up and down the wall based on the level of water in the tank. So the higher the angel went, the happier we were. The lower, actually, no, the higher it went, we had to pray more. The lower it went, we had water. So trying to, while it's good for us to know on our apps, Trevor, how do you think in these rental properties, in properties like what we have, where we have a lot of people over summer, how we communicate the water level to people who don't have access to the app?
So we're working on a read-only version. So currently the app can be shared with multiple people, but it's full access. So they get alerts, they can control the settings, etc. But the read-only version is on the radar, pardon the pun, and coming. And I would expect that what we can see then is some kind of dashboard, maybe a tablet that gets installed, or just an email to your guests, or whatever that looks like. I'm a bit reluctant about emails because I find them point in time, and if somebody's on holiday, they tend not to look at them too much. So I'll probably be leaning more towards some kind of, a cheap tablet that just has a screen or a dashboard, shows their usage. And I really find the estimated predictive remaining time frame on the water more pressing than anyone else for people, because if they look and go, oh, I've only got 3 hours of water left, maybe the behavior might change slightly. So something along those lines, but absolutely, it's in the pipeline. We understand that there's a need and a want for read-only, let's call it, display of information.
Cool. I'd like to have a gauge on the wall, something a bit steampunk, something a bit old school. And I think for rental properties and holiday rentals as well, something like that might be good.
Yeah, maybe one thing to throw in, because we had over the past couple of months a couple of workshops internally, and one concept was actually maybe down the track, to reach out to Airbnb and to have some critical and pretty much vital data imports. And I think this is something, Trevor, we happily to discuss and explore a little bit further.
Absolutely.
Because I think a lot of rental properties, holiday rental properties, are rented out through Airbnb, and it's that seamless experience, to have it managed actually through one source or one app.
Yes.
And getting then an Airbnb notification that something is unusual, or you are above average, above other guests, or something like that would be great. Like just for, just to keep a little bit like what you get as a recommendation, even on your water bills. It's that nudging moment. It's to not to be, restrictive or anything, but basically to remind people a little bit that this is really tank water supply. And even like, I'm not actually saying that they should be completely, going nuts with when they are connected to mains, but I think that would be great, and we're more than happy actually to discuss this further, probably down the track.
Yeah, that'd be great. We see the TankMate solution not in isolation at all. In fact, in many instances, it's part of a bigger solution.
Yeah.
It's really just providing necessary, timely information so people can make decisions on what they're doing. Sometimes the tank gets emptied because somebody left the tap on. Very, very innocent. Nothing untoward, no leak, nothing like that, but you pay the price. And it's just about knowing about that. So I think absolutely an integration with an Airbnb or something that shows that is critical, because it's a central point of contact. The alerts are happening already. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, no, I think that would be really fantastic, and adds an additional value also to experience for guests, what it means actually to be off grid and so on, and to create that more conscious mindset around. And I think like even through a shared app or something, like that's probably also something to consider to anyone who's staying, because usually it's a lot of family members in your case, right? You still there? Are you on mute?
Sorry, I'm in the kitchen. I'm cooking and doing it. No, I just like something on the wall so everyone can see. They don't have to install the app. Something that's not tied to that's a bit more sort of natural for them just to be able to look at and glance at and see how much water we have.
Yeah, great. Yeah, same. I can actually envision that, at the butter factory, to have a really big dashboard with all the data collection of water, energy, whatever it is, That would be pretty much Anthony. Yeah, so on this note, I just wanted also to quickly share one thing. So we have TankMate on Avitat as well, and if you, for example, purchase TankMate and you're connecting it with your water tank, so I have, for example, here created our property up north in Hideaway Bay, and I have added certain features, of course, the tank water supply and so on. All of these purchases would then appear here under purchases and would link then also to the impact meter. And this is exactly how you create over time a repository of all your good decisions and really converting that into property value, because it will inform a future buyer. For example, what have you done? Those things, a water tank, a water level meter reader, and so on, you're not usually taking with you. It's not a piece of furniture. So these things are usually remaining with the property on sale, and they are adding real good value to it. And this is what we are making visible to others. And with that, there will be heaps more, because, like, for example, sustainability in home improvements, in renovations, or even like added extensions on whatever it could be. All of this will play a huge role even in the finance sector, for example, and you will have access to green loans and so on. So yeah, if you are purchasing, for example, a TankMate, we will automatically then add, I'll give you the opportunity actually to create a logbook and to start your journey and tracking all these great home improvements, so that future buyers are more informed. So we are pretty much at the end of this webinar, and I think it was an absolute amazing session, very informative around water security. And for everyone who might have been a little bit tracking actually what's happening around climate change and the COP, water is actually the big topic of the future, because we are facing a fair bit on the challenges, and being more conscious, more wisely in how we use our water and how we collect the water and how we manage actually is a quite critical part to our homes. So I want to say a big thank you to everyone, in particular you, Trevor, because you're on the other side of Australia. So thank you for all the shared stories and information. We will share the recording in the next couple of days. We will share it also in community. If there are any questions or anything, please feel free to leave a comment underneath. And I'm pretty sure Trevor, because Trevor is so responsive and it's really quite incredible.
No pressure.
So I'm pretty sure he will jump in and answer any questions. But you can also reach out through the TankMate product page directly to Trevor and get any additional information you might have. So yes, thank you very much. It was a great session, and feel free to share also that information around that we are actually giving away a TankMate. Until the end of December, we will basically put everyone in a draw who is part of the community, the Habitat community.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. And I think, yeah, have a good rest of the year, good holiday season, and we see you next year.
Absolutely. Thank you. And have a nice evening, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.